Welcome back, legends, to another Uncommon Man podcast, where we help guys install 3 systems. One of them, which is the Precision Blueprint, where we help our guys create and live a clear vision for their life, installing our system, which gives our men back a minimum of 10 hours of time per week, while being laser focused on what they want and giving them unlimited discipline and consistency to get it, all while experiencing physical vitality, feeling strong, radiant, and energized. Excited for this podcast, guys. Unveiling the hidden stresses in high performing men and what you need to keep an eye on as a high performer that you may not be aware of. And Harry, I'm going to throw this straight over to you, mate. You've coached hundreds of men and lots of dudes in a range of careers and a range of business and a range of life experiences and times in their life as well. What are some of the signs for the high performers that they may be unaware of that are actually signs that they have a high level of stress in their life?
I think some of the most common for people, especially people that don't really associate with the labels of stress or burnt out or overwhelmed, because they're like, no, that's not me, that's a weakness, and just like hammer down and go even harder. One of the most common is probably being reactive all the time, getting triggered easily. Sometimes it's at work when you're working with that incompetent either employee or vendor, or you get home, get easily frustrated or angry or irritable with the kids, with the partner, over things that don't really matter. Like you're always sitting at that simmering level of, we would call it stress, but irritability might be another word some people kind of identify with. Like it takes you all of 0.1 of a second to go from 0 to 100. And if you have trouble switching off, like if you have trouble being present in what you're doing, and obviously that affects you at work, and then you come home and you're still thinking about work, and then that either bleeds into trying to go to sleep, so it keeps you up at night and things like that. I think those are 2 signs that I know I can relate to, and I know a lot of other people that are in that high performing go space really, really experience.
Yeah, those are sneaky, eh? Those are so sneaky, and I guess from an impact point of view, the biggest impacts are on the people that we love the most, which is especially for business owners. Like it's funny, a business owner is somebody who's like, right, there's a problem I want to solve. I want to take more control of our time. I want to have the opportunity to earn more money or as much as or as little as I please. So it's like, cool, I'm going to go into business for this idea of freedom. And then it's like, cool, we're in this business. And next thing, the relationships are falling apart, our health's falling apart. And it's just a sad thing that I'm going to go into business so I can do more of the things that I love to do with the people that I love to do them with. And next thing, the thing that we don't realize, which is one of the biggest things impacting the shattering of relationships, is that level of stress that we just end up blowing up. Like that zero to fucking full villain rather than hero in 0.1 of a second.
Well, where it becomes sneaky as well is if you're not aware of that, the common response or rationale for that is it's other people's fault. I wouldn't be like that if they didn't annoy me, if they weren't so incompetent, if they weren't, didn't have the IQ of a piece of bark, of like, it's everybody else's fault. It's not my stress or my lack of control of my own emotions, right? And then so, again, if it's everybody else's fault, well, I've got nothing to address because I'm not the incompetent one. I'm not the annoying one. Everybody else needs to get better.
And I think you've probably hit on quite a large and a hard pill to swallow, and it's hard for those guys with a shallow gag reflex. Really, is the age-old excuse when it is our loved ones that we're getting angry at, or we feel like we're surrounded by idiots. Is this, well, can't you see what I'm doing? Can't you see how hard I'm working for this family, for you as my wife or partner or whatever it is? It's interesting how that 0 and 0.1 of a second to straight villain, and then how we mask our shame of how much we've fucked up by making these excuses about, but I do this for us. And I'm like, I wind back, and this goes out to you legendary business owners, because I think you are fucking a big solution to a lot of problems in our world, but it goes out to you in terms of face the facts. You hopped into business for you, and that's why you did it. And fucking good on you for doing it. There's nothing wrong with that, but just don't use that as an excuse when shit's not going right. And like Harry said, you've missed that, or hitting that point of stress that was hidden. It's like, you got into business for you. I can do it. But make sure that you're managing those elements of stress. Nick, what do you see, mate, that are these sneaky, we'll call them assassins, ninja assassins of like high performing men?
So just to give a bit more context on the stress component, so you've got 3 different types of stress. You have acute stress, you've got episodic acute stress, and you have obviously the long-term one, which we don't want to talk about, but most business owners are sitting with chronic stress, and that's where you sit and you end up accruing all of these health problems over a long period of time. So just a quick differentiation between all 3. Acute is, let's say you get into a fight with your partner and it's, let's say, a day or 2, and then it dissipates and then everything's back to normal. Episodic is, let's say you are a healthcare worker and you are having to deal with, stresses more frequently than not. And it's like go time and then you can switch off. Also not a healthy combination. But then you get chronic stress. And that's the one where most business owners are sitting, because you've got the financial stresses, you've got the relationship pressures, you've got all these different things that are just sitting on your plate. And what happens is you get stuck in the space where everything seems like it's a lion that's trying to attack you. And you're stuck in this hyper-vigilant state in fight or flight. And you're ready to either run or attack. So your mind isn't working as clearly and as effectively because you're in this chronic state all the time. You're not in a space where you can rationally interact with things. You might think that you are, but the way that you're going about your life is ineffective. So then you've got issues with your relationship. You've got issues with how you're dealing with people in the office. You're unable to problem solve. Your body is unable to rest. And then you sit with burnout or hyperfixation, dissociation, heart palpitations, insomnia, just random cramps that occur within the body, indigestion. These are like subtle things, but if it's happening over a long period of time and you eat fairly well, this is your body trying to tell you, listen, mate, like, if you're chronically fatigued and tired, or if you're unable to switch off, or the mind is really busy, that means that there's a loop that is unable to close and you're just stuck in that state. So from my side, I see it as like a holistic experience that people think is their norm because this has just happened for such a long period of time. So when you're like, oh, mate, like, how you doing? No, I'm okay, because that feels like you're normal, but you're actually sitting at like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, and you're chronically stressed all the time, and it's not normal. And the minute you do switch off, which I've heard, I don't know about you guys, but so many times I've had clients come to me after, let's say, a holiday, and they're like, I was just so tired on my holiday. When I switched off for like that week, I was exhausted. I just slept. Or they battled to switch off because this baseline is their normal, and it feels
or they
so
got
far.
sick.
Get sick. Yep.
Yes, exactly. So you've also got you're immunocompromised all the time. So 10 to 1, you're probably popping supplements, or you're going to a doctor more often than not, and they're like, hey, but like, you've got high cortisol, your blood pressure is high, and you know these things. It's like, oh, but I'm not stressed. You are. You just haven't learned to effectively physiologically regulate your system so that you can tell your body that you don't have to be stressed. You don't have to have a physical lion attacking you or clawing at your leg. You just can look at your bank account and be like, oh, goodness, I don't have X amount and I need to pay Y amount. That's enough to trigger that, that set of response.
Hey, I am blown away. Like, you guys know, we have, I think, nearly 22,000 guys in our high performance men group. And I spend a good portion of time chatting to guys in there, sending them resources, doing all that stuff. And I am blown away. And I think you guys already recognize this when clients come to you, but they go down the path. Yeah, man, I've tried everything. I've tried everything. And I'm like, okay, cool. What does that look like? Okay, I've tried. There's guys who are struggling with stubborn belly fat. They can't get rid of that. I'm like, what have you done? Oh, I've tried dieting. I've tried exercising. I'm like, cool. Okay. And I'll give you guys the answer that we give our clients at the end of this, and I'll show you where to get it as well. It's really simple, but it's like, I got stubborn belly fat I can't get rid of. Harry said that I'm blowing up my partner all the time. You know, you've got this chronic stress level where I'm going to the doctor. I seem to always be sick. I'm on an array of chemicals, supplements, or whatever it is, and it just blows my mind how many of them have tried such a huge array of things, yet what we do is so simple. It's not sexy. Fuck, I wish it was sexy. Fuck, I wish we could just be like, hey guys, here's the shiniest, sexiest object ever, and it works. It's just like, hey guys, here is the most basic, simple system, and if you stall it, literally the guys who do just crush it. It's like, it blows my mind, and it's devastating that happens. But from your point of view, Harry, like, a lot of guys have walked through your door, and I say that in a positive way as clients rather than the guys that walk through your door sexually. What have you seen as the biggest non-sexy, non-shiny thing that you've done with you guys that have moved the needle for them?
Sleep.
Fucking hell, every time.
Every time. Like, and to your point, where a lot of people have tried, everything,
yeah,
in quotation marks, a lot of those attempts have been to address a symptom, not to actually go down that funnel of like, what's actually causing this. And so if you follow that process with literally anything, whether it's the arguments that you have with your partner, or it's with your health, or it's with your business, or it's with anything, if you go beyond how do I fix this thing, and that little step further of why is this thing happening in the first place, and then maybe you have to do that a couple of times to get to the point of like, oh, this thing is off, or this thing is wrong, or this thing is causing these downstream effects, and you fix that, then everything else becomes so much easier. And like, sleep is a pretty stock standard one, because every human, there's not one single human that does not need at least 7 hours of night every single night until the day you die. There is no study ever that has proved that a human can function optimally and be optimally healthy on less sleep. Like, fun fact for you, there used to be a record, like in the Guinness World Record books, of like how long someone would go without sleep. It's like some stupid amount of days. And of all the crazy stuff they have in it, like they've got dudes from Red Bull jumping out of fucking satellite things in space, and like with people jumping out of planes with no parachutes, all that kind of stuff. They banned the one of how long you could go without sleep because they deemed it too dangerous. Because there's no requirement for being able to do that. Anyone could essentially do that. And there are so many dire consequences of not getting optimal sleep when you do it, like even one night. Get a shit night's sleep, how do you feel the next day? Everything is trash. You're more stressed out, you can't think properly, like you try and train and you're all over the place. Digestion is trash, like stress threshold is like minimal, all that kind of stuff. But then people don't want to fix their sleep. Again, how many people take, well, you just look at how big energy drinks are. Instead of looking at why don't I have the energy or the focus that I desire, it's like, what's the pill that I can take? A no-dose or an energy or a Red Bull or anything like that. Instead of, well, if I'm going to take supplements or do something, why not put that into sleep? Because not only is that going to give you more energy and focus, but it has all those other benefits to it. You fix that, and life becomes easier.
What do you?
It's not fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is classic, because what do you say to the guys who are still listening? Because I'll be honest, the guys who are listening and they heard sleep, they're like, oh, fuck that. I ain't got time. I ain't got time for that. I got to do other things. What do you say to the guys who are listening and they're like, okay, the man's on a point here. The Guinness Book of World Records literally took this out because it's too dangerous. What would be your first thing that you do with guys to help them with sleep?
Consistency.
Yeah.
in when you go to sleep and when you wake up.
Mhm.
Same time, every day. Doesn't matter if it's Monday, if it's Sunday, if it's Friday, if it's like Wednesday. Every day of the week, you go to sleep and you get up at the same time, at least within 30 minutes. That consistency is huge. Where a lot of people fuck themselves is having to get up at 5 a.m. Monday to Friday and then weekends sleeping until 8 a.m. Right? It just throws everything out. And then,
and I guess if I'm the guy who's going to sleep at, let's say I'm going to sleep at 9 p.m. every night, but I'm fucking not following sleep. I'm just, what do I do?
sleep routine.
Just keep cleaning.
Number one, sleep routine. Like
Just
there's
lie in
so
bed?
many environmental factors that you can introduce that require absolutely, basically no effort, right? Once you set that stuff up so that you're essentially mimicking nature, so you turn your overhead lights off and have a dimly lit light, either candles or rock salt lamp, something like that, ideally below eye line, basically representing a sunset.
Yeah.
Naturally, if you have that, bonus points if you want to wear blue light blocking glasses, you will feel tired within about 30 to 40 minutes. Like you won't even need anything else because you'll naturally feel tired just being in that environment, right? And you will be able to get away with a lot dimmer light than most people experience, like think that they can, right? On top of that, you get rid of screens and God forbid, maybe actually talk to your partner or your kids, you know,
Fuck no.
do anything.
Wow.
I know that seems like a punishment for a lot of people, but that's the life you created. So maybe sit with it for a little bit. Do anything else you need to prep for the next day. Maybe that's either organize your bag or your food for the next day, organize your calendar, like do whatever else you kind of need to in that time that's not on screens. And then if you want to, you can do your reading or your meditation or your journaling or whatever other practice you might have in that space. I can guarantee you will fall asleep so much easier than someone that's got all the lights on their screen up until the moment they go to bed. Like you remove all that stimulus and it becomes so much easier because lo and behold, you're not trying to fight biology. Like if you've got the lights on, you're on your screen, you've got all these cues telling your brain that it's time to be alert, it's time to be awake. And just because you turn the lights off doesn't mean that it's going to follow suit. It has all these internal mechanisms of when to release melatonin, when to do all these things, these cascade of like chemicals in your brain that require for you to get into a deep state of sleep. So the longer that you delay that, even though you might get into bed, like you said, because you've only now essentially started the chain of events to go to sleep, you've now delayed you getting into a deeper state of sleep for another 90 minutes or 2 hours. And so then you're not getting into a proper state of REM sleep for another couple of hours, and then your alarm goes off and you're mid-cycle or you haven't got any REM sleep and you wonder why your brain foggy, irritable, don't feel rested and all that kind of stuff, because you may have been in bed, but you're not actually getting deep and restorative sleep.
One of the studies, and I wish I could just grab it and quote it perfectly, but it was the study, and they say it's done over 5 billion people because it's the study of daylight savings. When that clock goes back and we lose that hour of sleep, and thank God for it though, because just heads up on daylight savings, you save your curtains, right? Because there's less sunlight on your curtains. That was a question on the radio for the Queenslanders. I thought that was fantastic of introducing daylight savings into Queensland. But anyway, back to the study. You lose that hour of sleep, heart attacks increase by 23%.
Yeah.
23%.
Ridiculous.
Yep. Fucking, we're talking about 5 billion people or more who experience daylight savings. That's where it changes. You know what happens when you gain that hour of sleep back and daylight savings flicks back off or on, whatever you want to call it? Heart attacks drop by 23%. It's like, do you need an hour? That is an hour. Like, come at me with that. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Fun fact for all the guys out there, and another reason to actually help around the house with getting the kids to bed and all that kind of stuff, and actually contribute a little bit more. For every extra hour of sleep a woman gets, her libido goes up by 13%.
Oh,
13%. The female version of Viagra increases libido by 24%. So if you can help your wife to get an extra hour of sleep, your chance of getting lucky and her desire for you, provided everything else is on point, then your chance goes up drastically.
Like I'm removing the lights. That the house now.
Everything
no
goes
lights.
off.
Everything's gone. Curtains are closed. It's on. That's all. That baby's getting his bloody mouth taped. There's no more screaming from that baby.
There's going to be 5 more in the next 12 months.
Why did you decide to have so many kids? Harry told me to turn off the lights and get a salt lamp, and sleep went through the roof, and can't count how many days Fleur's libido went up by 13%. That's brilliant. Oh, that is fantastic news. Thank you for that, Harry. That's great. That's great. Nick, what have you done with your guys? Because you talked about the acute levels of stress, which is obviously directly connected to the nervous system, which is what we talk about a lot with our guys. What's the most unsexy, boring thing that you do that just, helps guys get further in the direction of where they want to go?
I think just as Harry said, I mean, the sleep component is starting at your baseline. So 2 or 3 things that I'd like to add to what you said there is, once you have that level of consistency, and if you do have an outside space, or you do tend to venture outside, because nowadays men don't do that. They just want to work in front of their laptops or in their office. When you wake up, get direct sunlight. So go for the 10 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight. Go for a walk, or even just sit and have a glass of warm water or something on the outside and write or read or do something else. But just to get yourself into the correct rhythms, as well as when the sun is about to set, get outside again. Give yourself the 10, 30 minutes. I think Huberman's got more of a specific protocol on that, like 10 minutes if it's direct sunlight, and like 20 to 40 minutes if it's overcast, just depending on the quality of light that you get.
Such a nerd, that guy. Classic.
He is. If you want to be specific, then you can go check out some of his interesting data on that.
I can just imagine the caveman back in the day being like, stop the watch
exactly. Sundown, just walking around to the sundial. I'm like, oh shit, I need to be up I need to look at the sun now. And then just the whole thing on stimulants. At least stop having any stimulants between 8 to 10 hours before bed. So normally, like, a good cutoff would be, let's say 12 o'clock in the day. That's a great time to stop with stimulants. I'd even say 10 o'clock in the morning. Like, don't do more. You don't need more. And if you do need more, then let's revert back to the fact that you're probably not sleeping, or you're not supplementing, or you haven't looked at nootropics, or you just don't have a clear regime in place. And then a bonus tip is, if your mind is really busy at night, sit down and write those things out for the next 5 minutes. Just imagine that you're emptying out your mind. This is something that I learned from Tim Ferriss a couple of years back. Like, he just says, you take your monkey mind, put it on paper before bed, and then you can go sleep. And it takes you 5 minutes. But the beauty in that from a subconscious standpoint is, I can come back to that. I'm not going to lose this data. I'm not going to forget. And I find that some of the thinking that I've done throughout the day, if it wasn't clear, sometimes I have these moments or epiphanies just before bed. I write it down, and that's when I can, start structuring it and say, this is actually a big, needle mover, and this is something I can come back to. This is the answer that I've been looking for. Or let me ponder on this in, when I sleep. Just allow my subconscious to focus on this idea. I'd like to explore that. Then you can explore those type of things as well. So just having a very basic structure in place and having that level of consistency. And if you're like, but can't I use my phone? No, don't use the phone. Pen and paper. Have the book next to your bed. Have all these things next to you so you're comfortable and you don't have to get up, or you don't have to do these things. And also, don't drink like 2 liters of water half an hour before bed. Otherwise, you're going to piss everywhere. So that doesn't help either. So just don't have water an hour before bed, at least. And make sure you do relieve yourself instead of like, I'm going to just sleep and then I'll wake up at like 1 and then go do that. And then you're not going to sleep again.
Another bonus to writing all that down as well is it forces your brain to slow down. Like, if you're overwhelmed, or you're thinking like all these freaking things, having to physically write it out, I guarantee you that you can't think as fast as you write. So it forces you to actually articulate some of those thoughts and what's going on, and slow down. Right?
The funny thing you said, and I have no study to back this up, but I have plenty of experiences with clients and personal experiences. is like you mentioned that epiphany before bed. It's like, I've had epiphany. And I'm like, what happens when I get my guys? I'm like, take a day off, go on holiday, take the fucking weekend off. Like one of my targets for a lot of my clients is like, and I think a lot of them is already happening. It's like double your business and take 3 months off a year. They're like, that's impossible. I'm like, it's not. You're going to do it. It's going to be amazing. And you know what's going to happen from it? You're going to make more money. Your relationships are going to be more awesome and your health is better. But the reason why I believe it happens is because just before bed, you're settling down and your creative mind comes on and it's got all these amazing ideas that it hasn't had the stillness to bring forward in the daytime because you've been running around like a mad hatter. And suddenly you're like, I think I just had a $3 million business idea. I've got to stay up and write the business plan for this and do all these things. I'm like, no. Just write down what comes to mind and then work on it. But I think it highlights the importance of slowing that down. Yes, sleep, because it's consistency every day, but also taking the time. Like, give yourself a break. Like, I think you just hit on possibly one of the biggest needle movers in men's and business owners' lives right there on the button. Harry, you got something that just wants to come out of your mouth, mate.
I do. There's, on that exact topic, there's a TED talk called How to Get Your Brain to Focus. And he talks about how from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to bed was always on the screen, from his phone to his iPad to a TV to a laptop to all these things. And there was always this stimulus coming in. And when it wasn't directly in front of him, because being bored is like the worst thing we could ever be, you pull out our phone. So there's always stimulus coming in. And like you said, it hushes that creative mind because we've always got something and we're always responding and processing information, never actually, connecting any dots, no matter how far flung they might be, with the information that we've always got in our brain. And so, like you said, for a lot of people that have some of those ideas or those epiphanies, maybe in the shower, maybe right before bed, or in those times where they don't have that stimulus coming in. And like for me, that's why I like meditation so much, because especially being a parent and living next to a construction site, silence isn't something that I get too often, right? So being able to sit there with nothing going on and play with some of those ideas and allow that to kind of come up allows you to come up with some of those ideas. But you have to allow yourself to be bored, to cut off some of that stimulation and to just let it come.
Right? Mate, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it was a podcast. Was it Danny Jones? I'd never listened to Danny Jones before, but this guy, Jack Krause, something like that. Sorry, I can't be as detailed as I'd like to be, but he talks about blue light and how what you're talking about there, like crushing our creativity, but to the next level of like being controlled, like how controllable we are due to the influx and blue light of our life. And I'm not going to go into deep things because it is fucking phenomenal, but blue light is like, just tells everything to grow, just fucking grow. So it was awesome for people with burns because it was like helps stimulate the skin growth. But then you think about everything else, like the cancers, all these other things that came with it. But he talked about the level of control and what happens with control. We don't have the capability to stop and think and be creative. Creative people are very dangerous. They come up with great ideas. They come up with efficient systems. It's not a good,
something that
it's not a good thing.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Just I have a thought here.
Yeah.
There's a principle that I didn't understand for a couple of years, and it became more apparent the deeper I got into this work. And it's really this principle of slow down so then you can speed up.
Yeah.
And it's in that slowness where you actually begin to step into that space of creativity, where you deep dive into these layers of just genius that we all have available to us, but we're normally just too busy or too high on dopamine to actually pick up the nuances or have these ideas, like you said, these epiphanies. So I think with the intention, as much as like sleep is going to help you and your health, and maybe help how you navigate your relationships and connect with the world around you, it's a thing of, this is most probably the missing link in why you're not operating at your best. It is the one thing that, like, once you start taking control over it, like you just said, and you give yourself that autonomy, because essentially it's so counterproductive to slow down. Everything around you is telling you need to do this at 1,000%. You need to get this KPI. You need to move in this direction. You need to read 1,000 books this week to make sure that you're caught up with X, Y, and Z. When you actually slow down, the world slows down for you as well. And you actually notice the chaos and the madness. Everyone's thinking the same. No one's thinking differently. The herd is going this way. And because you're standing still, you're able to observe and notice the crazy and be like, oh, well, I probably look like the outlier. Yeah. That whole book on outliers, that's the idea. And that's when you spot the niche. That's when you see the gap. And that's when you can pursue that and be miles ahead of everyone else, because everyone thought, ooh, there's a shiny object there. I have to do it this way. And you're like, no, I'm going to be still and be patient. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to do what I know. And then it'll hit you. It'll come to you. It will find you. The idea, the next step, the feeling that you're looking for.
I think one of the things that holds us back from that is that we don't realize our own power of genius and how freaking intelligent that we are. And I get moments of it where I think I touch about 1/10 of the pure power that exists in me. But I think if we could get people to glimpse of that, we would probably stay still for longer and do more cool things, because people are just so freaking amazing creative. But
that FOMO, right? If I stay still, what am I missing out on? What could I be doing? And like, unless if there's something that I struggle with, as you know, all the time, like someone that's just like, well, if I'm not doing something, then it's a waste of an opportunity. Yeah. So it's always just go, go, go. And until, like you said at the event, you're able to let go of that approach to things, which is freaking scary if you have no proof that this other concept of slowing down, of just doing nothing, of allowing that kind of stuff to happen is going to work out. There's all that internal monologue of like, you're being lazy. The competition is doing more than you. Like, you need to be doing this. You're wasting this. You're doing that. And, you're not going to get there. It's going to take you longer. This isn't going to work. And you have to battle a lot of that just to be able to sit in there, which provides its own challenges.
Yeah. Okay? Just the discomfort of boredom, bro. It's hard. I've had to take my phone in to get its battery replaced, because, of course, iPhones max out after some time. Of course, that's what they do. But I'm like, I don't have my phone. I feel really like there's a low level of anxiousness of like when I go out, I'm like, oh, where's my phone? What if the boys need me? Because as if I'm so important that suddenly one of the guys is going to need me, or my client's going to have an issue. Like, I'm like, calm the farm, mate, for one. But I'm like, man, what a blessing. 3 days now, no phone. As soon as I leave this office, it's out. I'm done. I'm cooked. I'm just watching little Oakley kick about and do his, one poo every 3 days at the moment, which is like a fucking tsunami.
Yeah.
And that's life. I'm like, wow, this is cool. And you may have noticed, but I certainly have, just the clarity that I've got on like business structures, where we're heading, the confidence and certainty that I have in team members and our direction and what we're doing. And I'm like, fucking hell, executing like a motherfucker here. And then that voice comes in. I'm like, what are you doing not working right now? What are you doing? Being lazy. Enjoy it. Like, get in that boredom.
One thing that like I'm trying to implement more around that kind of frame is like that whole recovery that enhances performance piece. So like I like to tie everything to like athletic performance, because I feel like that's a great, like, you can tie that to just like fit, mental, business, kind of everything. Like, you spend 10% of your time in the gym or actually training, and then the rest is actually recovering to prepare for that performance. Yep. If you're constantly training and doing no recovery, you will burn yourself out. You're not so productive. Like, even if you're in the gym doing whatever 24/7, right? And then so like trying to shift that to, well, if me taking the night off and watching Netflix with Liv, or just doing nothing productive, right? Yeah. Or anything like that, if that allows me to have that idea to then tomorrow, or get a good night's sleep, and then tomorrow I show up with more intensity, I'm more focused, I get more work done in less time, I do all those things which move the needle a hell of a lot more, rather than me sitting here bashing my head against the wall because I need to be here for so many hours and focusing on that, then, well, it has improved that performance and that outcome. It's just hard when you're in that space.
I have a question for you. When's the last time you read a fiction book?
The last time
Was it when 50 Shades of Grey was launched?
I was in London when I used to read that on the bus to work, bro.
Classic.
Last book I read.
Just riding the train with a big heart on. That's
Oh,
great. That's a real way to do it.
It just adds a new level of risque to it, bro. It's fine.
You are 50 Shades of Grey, right? Okay.
No, Liv and I used to read. What did we read? The Last of Us. Actually, no. Oh, I forget what it was. It was this actually pretty cool book. But used to read it in bed. Together. That was a cool bonding thing that we used to do. So like I'd read it out loud to her in bed, and that's what we used to do. But that was probably maybe like a year ago. Oh no, it would have been longer because actually it would have been before Jack's. So like 2 years ago.
Man, because I've got this thing. It's kind of a reflection of the not being able to sit still and be in boredom and creativity. Is like, got a couple of Jack Reacher books sitting on my shelf that I haven't read. I've read quite a few of them, loved them, and I was like, no, you got to read a non-fiction.
It's got to be business. It's got to be like podcasts. It's got to be like business focused, growth focused, like mindset, like all these things.
Oh man, and I must admit, apart from the podcast that I mentioned today, which was around health and stuff, I've pretty much cut potties out of my life. If I'm driving and it's like an interesting anthropological one, maybe I'll flick it on. But I've just realized like it's not that I am super smart and I know too much things. I probably do know too many things, if I'm honest. Like you could make me dumber. I'm not a bright, intelligent dude, but I'm like, you could remove a lot of fluff from my head and life would be more effective. But it's like, I just don't need more stuff. I realize that we don't lack information in an information age, but I think it's time just even have this conversation. It's like, maybe it is time to get 50 Shades of Grey off the shelf. I don't think I have it on my shelf, but a Jack Reacher or something like that to just get back in the game.
Of course, like you said, more information isn't always better. Like I like Hormozy's frame on that. It's like if you absorbed a piece of information, whether it was a book, a podcast, a resource of some sort, and it does not change your behavior, you have learnt nothing. That was just mental masturbation, right? And so, like, if you're not looking for something to change, you're not going to change your behavior.
No.
Why can you tell?
There's one of the things that, out of all the things that I get anxious about, is like I have a few, mentors or courses that I'm doing that are always trying to help me in some area of life. And if I might, let's say, I'll just catch up on that video, I'll watch a training from that course or something like that. I'll hop on, and instantly I'm in 5 to 10 minutes within the training, and I'm feeling anxious. Like, what is that? It's like, because I've got things that I've got to go take action on. And I haven't set my space up right. I haven't got a pen and paper. I'm just watching it for the sake of information.
Watching so you can listen to it and tick it off and be like, oh yeah, watch that. But then like 5 minutes later, like, oh, what was that about?
I'm an idiot. So now I'm like, no, I'm not doing that now. Or I'll have a cup of tea or spend some time with the Fleur. And then I'll go back and I'll literally put on my calendar, boom, this is the time that I'm doing this course. And I'll sit there. And the hard thing is, because you can watch, let's say it's an hour training, there might be 6 hours of work out of that training.
Just doing that, yeah.
And it's overwhelming, but it's like, okay, cool. I learned this one piece. I learn a piece. I pause the video. I put my action item down. I'm like, cool. Important, urgent. Important, not urgent. Unimportant, not urgent. Okay, cool. Yep, no, that's not the thing that needs to be done. I just go through that process, and by the time I finish watching an hour, I'm like, okay, that's the next 90 days. And I'm like, and I get used to that. I'm like, okay, you don't need to watch anything more unless there's something that you've missed or that's going to speed up that process. Watch it. Then boom. I'm like, okay, cool. And I get on that. And at the moment, there's a lot on my plate in terms of learning, but I've made sure it's all focused into one little laser point at the end. I'm like, that's going to make that faster. So I'll implement that strategy with that. Bam, 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 bam. And I'm like, but I don't ever now like listen to a training without sitting down with a pen and paper and being like, right, okay, cool. What am I actually going to change from this?
Yeah. Well, I'm the same. Like with that course, they've checked in a couple of times, that I'm doing, and they're like, cool, where are you up to? What have you done? And I'm like, nothing. Like, no more, because this is the one bottleneck that I'm solving. This is the thing that I'm solving. It does not serve me to absorb more information until this thing is solved. Right? No. So I will go from problem to problem or bottleneck to bottleneck, and there's no point observing all this information and then not doing anything about it. So I was like, why waste my time and just mental capacity? And that's why, like, a couple of times, like, you've sent me stuff, and I'm just like, no, I don't have capacity for that right now. Like, don't even put it in my fucking head because I don't want it there right now because it'll take me down a train that'll like just derail everything. And
So
even
good.
it cracks the shits when I do that, man. Like she'll say something and I'll like be in a state and she'll try to say something and I'll just be like, I don't have capacity for that right now. and she just like wants to rage it. I'm like, no. And then that's just like a running joke now that like every time that I don't want to deal with something, it's just like, sorry, I don't have capacity for that right now.
Mate, I'll give you credit because you've got some of the strongest boundaries ever. And you even give me shit. I might message you at 8 o'clock my time. You're like, bro, what are you doing on your phone? I'm like, Claire's already asked me the same question. I'm like, valid point. I want to close off for the guys there, but I want them to be able to have a place where they can go for resources. Is there anything else you want to share with the guys?
I don't think so. If there's a problem that you're addressing at the moment or something's not working the way that you would like it to, I implore you to look for the root cause. Like, look beyond treating the symptom of the issue of the frustration, the miscommunication, the stress, the low energy, the lack of focus, like whatever that problem is, look that little bit further as to like, why is this happening? Because there's going to be a bunch of other stuff that if you can solve that thing, makes a hell of a lot of other things so much easier, not just the one symptom that you're facing right now.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And look, guys, everything we've spoken about tonight is in our Facebook group, the High Performance Men Group. It is completely free. Yes, we run a business. We do coaching for men to get them into a space in their life where they're absolutely fucking crushing and loving. And if you want to do that, that's cool. Reach out to us and be like, hey guys, I want to see what it looks like to become a client. That's awesome. But if you just want information and you want things to implement in your life, come over to the group, you just join, we accept you into the group, tag you in the main training, which helps you out, but there is the sleep training in there, there is the nervous system training in there, there is the hormone training, like there is everything in there for you. So I'll make sure the link for that is in the description of the podcast. I hope wherever you're listening to this, you're absolutely chasing down and getting clear on the things you really want in your life and moving closer to what you want rather than just for more. And our mission is stronger men, stronger communities. And just by you listening to this, you've become a node in what is a greater impact on this world because we need you. We do need you guys. Strong men create strong leaders, which creates strong, safe communities, which has a ginormous impact. This is not just the next year. This is not the next 2 or 10 years. This is the next decades of time. So please, if you've loved the podcast as well, please share it to anyone in your circle and your friends on your social medias and tag us at UNCMP. That's our Instagram handle. And we'll see you on the next one, or we'll see you in the group. Thank you very much, Harry. Thank you very much, Nick. Loved having you guys. Thank you for the time. And see you in a couple of weeks.